Hi folks, this is Jason. Hope you're okay today. We're looking at this book, Lee Strobel, The Case for Christ. Now, Lee Strobel is not an academic, but he quotes an eminent academic, Professor McCrae. Is going to be involved in this conversation that I'm going to read out, and Professor McCrae is an absolute world-class scholar in ancient Near Eastern studies and archaeology, etc. We're going to look at the Dead Sea Scrolls and Jesus. So Strobel says this: admittedly, this is on the Dead Sea Scrolls. There is an allure to archaeology. Ancient tombs, cryptic inscriptions etched in stone or scratched onto papyrus, bits of broken pottery, worn coins, the tantalizing clues for an inveterate investigator. But few vestiges of the past have generated as much intrigue as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hundreds of manuscripts dating from 250 BC AD to 68 that were found in caves 20 miles east of Jerusalem in 1947. They apparently had been hidden by a strict sect of Jews called the Essenes before the Romans destroyed their settlement. Some bizarre claims have been made about the scrolls, including John Marco Allegro's absurd book in which he theorizes that Christianity emerged from a fertility cult in which adherents stripped out on hallucinogenic mushrooms. In a more legitimate but nevertheless much questioned research in papyri expert Josie or Callaghan said one Dead Sea fragment is part of the earliest manuscript ever found of the Gospel of Mark, dating back to a mere 17 or 20 years after Jesus was crucified. However, many scholars continue to be skeptical of his interpretations. In any event, no inquiry into the archaeology of the first century would be complete without asking what the scrolls, do they tell us anything directly about Jesus? I asked McCrae, the eminent scholar. Well, no. Jesus isn't specifically mentioned in any of the scrolls, he replied, says the eminent scholar. Primarily these documents give us insights into Jewish life and customs. Then he pulled out some papers and pointed to an article that was published in late 1997, although, he added, there is a very interesting development involving a manuscript called 4Q521 that could tell us something about who Jesus was claiming to be. That whet my appetite. Tell me what about it, I said with some urgency in my voice. McCrae, the great scholar, unfolded the mystery. The Gospel of Matthew describes how John the Baptist, imprisoned and wrestling with lingering doubts about Jesus' identity, sent his followers to ask Jesus this monumental question: are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? Matthew 11:3. He was seeking a straight answer about whether Jesus really was the long-awaited Messiah. Through the centuries, Christians have wondered about Jesus' rather enigmatic answer. Instead of directly saying yes or no, Jesus replied, go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, and those who have leprosy are cured. The deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Matthew 11, verse 4 up to 5. Jesus' response was an allusion to Isaiah 35. For some reason, Jesus included the phrase, the dead are raised, which is conspicuously absent from the Old Testament text. This is where 4Q521 comes in. This non-biblical manuscript from the Dead Sea collection, written in Hebrew, dates back to 30 years before Jesus was born. It contains a version of Isaiah 61 that does include this missing phrase, the dead are raised. Scroll scholar Craig Evans has pointed out that this phrase in 4Q521 is unquestionably embedded in a messianic context. McCrae said it refers to the wonders that the Messiah will do when he comes and when heaven and earth will obey him. So when Jesus gave his response to John, he was not being ambiguous at all. John would have instantly recognized his words as a distinct claim that Jesus was the Messiah. McCrae tossed me the article in which Evans was quoted as saying 4Q521 makes it clear that Jesus' appeal to Isaiah 35 is indeed messianic. In essence, Jesus is telling John through his messengers that messianic things are happening. So that answers John's question. Yes, he is the one who is to come. End of quote. I sat back in my chair, says Strobel. I think it's Strobel. To me, Evans' discovery was a remarkable confirmation of Jesus' self-identity. It was staggering to me how modern archaeology could finally unlock the significance of a statement in which Jesus boldly asserted nearly 2,000 years ago that he was indeed the Anointed One of God. So we see how ancient studies, ancient documents, confirm some of the things that were being said in the New Testament, specifically in this case the Gospel of Matthew. And it's important to go back to original sources and to study them, and you'll find out they confirm that the Christian faith is indeed correct. Thank you for listening.